So we're going to set up and solve some proportions at this point. So we're going to use our proportion solving skills. So let's take a look here. We've got a cake recipe calls for 1.5 cups of milk. Almost always when I'm reading through, I'll start underlining as I go. 1.5 cups of milk and 3 cups of flour. Seth made a mistake and used 5 cups of flour. How many cups of milk? So there's the question. How many cups of milk should he use to keep the proportions correct? So right there, there's your clue. There's a clue that we need to write a proportion, which again is a fraction set equal to another fraction. What I like to do, especially with word problems, is set up what I like to call a word fraction. And that's simply just a way for you to organize how you're going to set up your proportion. So the word fraction in this case would be cups of milk and cups of flour. So actually writing that down will help you make sure you have your two ratios correctly aligned to set up and solve your proportion. You could have flipped that around. It really does not matter. You could have flour on top, milk on bottom. But I just kind of went in the order of the information given. And again, I noticed that we're kind of comparing two quantities. So that's a clue as to why I would need to write a proportion. It says proportion in it as well, but in this case, that's another clue. Comparing two quantities, sometimes of different types, but in this case, similar types, cups of flour versus milk. So back to actually filling in my proportion, if I go ahead and now take my word fraction, and the milk is going to be on top, flour on bottom. So in this case, I'm just filling in the numbers. 1.5. I like to add the words there as well, and then 3 flour. But again, if you have this word fraction written down, it's really easy to help you make sure you're putting the right units in the right spot. So then the second fraction is set up. It needs to be the same setup: milk over flour, and we are given 5 cups of flour, which should go on the bottom. And so the unknown is how many cups of milk. And now we can go ahead and solve that proportion. So this is back to the basics, cross multiply and solve. So we end up with 3x equals 7.5 and divide by 3. And that should be x equals 2.5. And if you're not sure what you just solved for, check it out right there. X is right there. It's in the top position. That aligns with the top position over here. That's cups of milk. So the word fraction can really just help you make sure you know what you solved for and making sure you're setting it up correctly. We're going to take a look at another one here, and then I'll give you a chance to try one on your own. A grading machine can grade 48 multiple choice tests. Again, I like to just right away, 48, it's a number, the unit, whatever that is, 48 multiple choice tests in 1 minute. How long, there's the question word, how long will it take the machine to grade 300 tests? So how long, that's a time. So again, my word fraction in this case, just thinking about the units that I'm dealing with, they're talking about number of tests and time. So if I go ahead and start thinking about setting up my proportion. So my proportion is a fraction set equal to a fraction. I have 48 and 1 minute, specifically in this case. And how long will it take? Well, that's the time, so that's the unknown. So the unknown time goes on the bottom, and then we know we're trying to figure out how long would it take to grade 300 tests. So again, from here, we're just cross multiplying and solving from there. A lot of times you're basically cross multiplying and divide in these types of questions, but you never know. Sometimes it can be a little more complex. So cross multiply, I'm going to go ahead and put this step over here. We got 48x equals 300. And you can see I have my handy dandy Wabbit. That is what it's called. Did not mispronounce that. Now if it'll just turn on, we'll see. Maybe. Let's restart it. Okay, we're back in action. Go ahead and we know we need to divide by 48. Divide by 48. We get x equals 300 divided by 48. 6.25. And again, if you forget what you just solved for, the x is minutes. So yeah, we got a decimal. Can you have 6.25 minutes? Absolutely. So that's fine as an answer, 6.25 minutes. You don't need to convert that to minutes and seconds. 6.25 minutes is just fine. If you did want to convert it, it'd be 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Now, part two, though, how many tests, right? So how many tests could be graded in 90 seconds? So if you stop and think to yourself for a moment, what's different about this information than what we were given originally? And if you notice, we're given time in seconds. So let's think about that. In the original setup, we're going to use the same word fraction, tests over time. In this case, how many tests, we don't know. But I'm going to start with the original information, the 48. So we knew there were 48 tests graded in 1 minute. Well, in this case, we're going to compare that to seconds. So time in this case needs to be in seconds. So 1 minute, right? 1 minute is 60 seconds. So I'm going to put 60, and just a reminder to myself here, 60 seconds down below over, we want to know how many tests, so that's the unknown. The unknown is the number of tests. So X number of tests in 90 seconds. And once again, we're back to cross multiplying and again, dividing in this case, fairly straightforward once we have it set up. So we end up with 60x equals, once again, bust out your calculator if you need to, 48 times 90, 4,320, divide, we get x equals 72, oh, I forgot, oh, it's x tests. Okay, 72 tests in 90 seconds. That's pretty quick. Okay, so at this point, you can go ahead and try this one, and we will take a look at the answer. So take a moment, pause the video, try it out, and then we'll check our work. Okay. So in this case, again, just going through, as I read through, I like to highlight, right? So 6-ounce package of fruit snacks contains 45 pieces. How many, there's the question word, how many pieces, so that's what we're solving for, would you expect in a 10-ounce package? So my word fraction in this case is the weight, so ounce over pieces. So ounce over pieces is the way I'm going to set it up. I could flip that, but that's the way I'm doing it this time. So my proportion ends up being, the complete information is 6 ounces has 45 pieces. How many pieces? Well, that's the bottom, so pieces, would I expect in 10 ounces? Once again, cross multiply and divide. We get 6x equals 450. Divide by 6. We end up with 450 divided by 6. And that is 75 X represents pieces, so pieces. 75 pieces.